is inspired by her family, her native culture and heritage, and the landscape of the Southwest. And these influences shine through beautifully in all of the works that you see of hers that are featured in Clearly Indigenous. She regularly participates in arts markets across the Southwest and has received awards for her work in both glass and clay from a number of arts venues. Please join me in welcoming Carol Lujan.
Thank you, Miriam. Let's see, how do I do this? Okay, I'd like to start first by acknowledging the Potawatomi Nation. They're part of the Anishinaabe Nation, and they're the original people from this area. Also, I'd like to thank the Kalamazoo Institute of Arts for hosting the Clearly Indigenous exhibit. I think it's a wonderful display that's been put up. My name's Carol Lujan, and I'm a citizen of the Navajo Nation. My clans are Big Water and Salt Clan. My philosophy in life and art is based on the Navajo Beauty Way ceremony. And basically, the ceremony, the main prayer they have is what I put up here, and that's beauty before me, beauty behind me, beauty above me, beauty below me, beauty all around me, beauty in aging, and it's finished or it ends in beauty. And this is one of the pieces that I made, and it's titled The Beauty Way. In the Southwest, we always pray for rain, and rain is a blessing. So, and here I understand you have a lot of rain. My art is grounded in my culture and my life experiences. It combines traditional concepts with the non-traditional medium of glass. And I think the glass rugs really emphasize that. And this I entitled My Grandmother's Legacy series. The Navajo Nation, I'll just give you a brief overview of that. We're one of the largest politically sovereign indigenous nations in the United States. And there are 574 politically indigenous sovereign nations in the US, and 12 are here in Michigan. The Navajo Nation has the largest land base, and we have cover approximately 16 million acres. And I always hear what they always say, it's similar to the size of West Virginia, the comparison. So it's a very large area. And it's located in the Southwest and includes what is now Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, and Utah. My three primary influences are my grandmother and my mother, both textile artists. Also, my culture, the indigenous cultures of the Southwest, and the beautiful landscape and nature of the Southwest. My grandmother and mother are the primary influences of my art. My grandmother was a textile artist, and she supported the family by her beautiful woven rugs. And as a child, I didn't grow up on the Navajo Nation, but we would visit often. And as a child, I would watch her either herd the sheep, shear the sheep, or she would card the wool and spin her own wool. She had used her own natural dyes that she would get from different areas of the country on the Navajo Nation. But one of the main things is that I could never really communicate with her because she did not speak English and I was not taught Navajo. And Dan mentioned, that a number of people are what they call the boarding school generation. And my mother was from the boarding school generation. So she was punished if she spoke her language. So she didn't teach me and my brother how to speak Navajo. We just either heard her speak Navajo to relatives, and my dad was from the Otham Nation, from the Pima Nation in Arizona, and I would hear him speak the Otham language to his relatives, but when we were at home, the common language was English. So we couldn't communicate except just physically. I would watch her and she would always be weaving and talking to my mother in Navajo. And I felt a connection though between how she did her work and always was working, and she loved doing what she did best. And this is one of the pieces of the rugs that she made. And my mother, again, was removed from home at a very early age to attend the U.S. federal government boarding school. So she did not learn the art of weaving. Although I come from a long line of Navajo weavers, that line was sort of broken. But what my mother did is she made beautiful quilts, clothes, and Navajo-inspired dolls. And these are some of the dolls that she made. Okay, becoming an artist for me has been a non-linear journey. It has not been when I was born. I was born with all these artistic people and went directly into art. But since it's always been a part of my family, though, I've always been exposed to art. At an early age, I was recognized for my artwork in elementary school. A lot of my paintings, and I used to love to paint. I love colors. A lot of my paintings were always selected to be placed in the halls of the schools that I went to. So that just encouraged me even more. But I took time away from my art to raise a family. I have 3 children and 1 grandchild. And I pursued an education. I got a PhD in sociology, of all things different than art. But anyway, I got a PhD in sociology and became a university professor at Arizona State University. And after 6 years, I was able to receive tenure there. And when I got tenure, I also was able to get a 1-year sabbatical. So I took my sabbatical and I went to Santa Fe and I took classes at the Institute of American Indian Art, which Letitia was talking about in her presentation. And when I took the classes there, this was in the late 1990s, they were not offering any glass art classes any longer. So I took clay sculpture and photography classes. And I made clay masks, female figures, and horses. And this is an example of the clay mask that I made. And the clay masks are inspired by, how do I go back? I wanted to go back to the clay mask. Where's that little pointer?
It's right here. So, there you go.
There we go. The clay masks are inspired by the Navajo ceremonial deities, and these deities are called yebaches. And the ceremonies are performed to not only heal the sick patient, but to restore balance in the universe. And the Navajo believe that illness is caused by the overall imbalance in the universe, which unfortunately we seem to be having a lot of. These are the clay horses that I made, and these are one of the clay figures that I made. In the early 2000s, after I was working with clay for a while, I was encouraged by a friend to sell my artwork. So, believe it or not, I went ahead and started entering my artwork into juried art shows in the Southwest, and primarily Native art shows. And I received a number of awards for that. So that again encouraged me to continue taking workshops in clay sculpture. And I would take workshops in the summer when I wasn't teaching at Arizona State University. And one of the workshops included making clay molds for slumping fused glass. And I've always appreciated glass art. I still am very intrigued by the way that the light makes glass seem to come alive. So this was my first experience in cutting glass, and it really sparked my interest in glass art. Again, I've always been interested in the interplay between glass and light, and to me, it's almost magical. This is my first piece that I ever made with fused glass. Now, fused glass is a lot different than hot glass or blowing glass. So I could actually just work in a little room all by myself. I don't have to have anybody help me turn the glass or anything. So after taking the workshop, I began to look for a fused glass class. And luckily, it was fortunate that I was teaching at Arizona State University. So I was in the area of Mesa, Arizona. And Mesa has a really fantastic art center. And they have this beautiful glass program. So I took classes there, and my glass instructor's name was Troy Moody, and he was the best instructor to have if you want to learn how to make fused glass. So I made glass plates and bowls, and realized since I knew how to make clay molds that I could also make glass masks. So these are the clay molds, the clay masks that I've been making. And then these are the glass masks. So again, inspired by my grandmother's beautiful woven rugs, I experimented with making a glass rug. And this is one of the first glass rugs that I made. A year later, after making these glass rugs, and I've only been working with fused glass for 1 year, I was commissioned by the Pueblo of Pewaukee, that's located near New Mexico, Santa Fe, New Mexico, to make 2 feet by 3 feet glass rugs for their casino and resort. And so far, these are the largest pieces of fused glass that I've made. For me, it's hard to find a kiln that's large enough to fit that size. And so this actually shows you where it was put. They were placed in the casino. My other influences include the following Indigenous artists. Of course, Dan Friday should be the first one, right, up there. And then Tammy Garcia, who's both a clay artist and she does glass art also, and Preston Singletary. And Dan Dominga, I don't know if any one of you have heard of him. I love his work, his paintings and his sculptures. And then Roxanne Swinsel, who's a well-known clay artist. As stated earlier, my influences are my family, the culture, and the importance of place. So art for me is a wonderful way to express myself and the beauty of my culture. And I recognize how really privileged I am to have the time to create and to share my art. Because sharing my art, I'm also sharing my culture. I'll talk a little bit about the fused glass process. And I don't know if any of you work with fused glass or have done anybody? Oh, good. So fused glass is essentially just heating 2 or more pieces of glass in a kiln so that they melt together. And the temperature required for melting glass ranges between 1400 to 1500. And I've used both what is called coefficient 96 and coefficient 90 glass. The 2 types of glass, one is primarily known as bullseye, which is the coefficient 90, and then the 96, which is now called oceanside. They're very incompatible. So if you ever try to work with fused glass, you can't work with those together. They'll crack. Also, there's the 6 millimeter rule. If it's too thin, it tends to pull in. If it's too thick, it spreads out. I usually use 2 pieces of 3 millimeter glass, but since most of my work has a design on it, I have used at least 4 pieces of 3 millimeter glass. So in this piece, the mask, it's a large mask. There we go. This has like 4 pieces of glass layered on top of each other, right where the eyes are. But I place it strategically so you don't really see the distortion that it causes. This one also I've used more than 2 pieces of glass, so you can see the unevenness along the border there. And I have some examples of my work. These are panels, and they are, they have the Navajo geometric designs on them. And this is one of the pieces that I noticed it's on one of the advertisements for that the museum is using here. And that's a 12 by 22 inch piece of fused glass. And I use different types of glass. I guess we can go through this. These are called glass stringers. And so they're different cuts of glass. I use paint. The little white dots are glass enamel paint. And then the little pieces here and there, those are pieces of frit. I think Dan talked about that. And then I have the dragonfly images here are dichroic glass, which is a little different than the fused glass that I usually use. The dichroic glass is shiny, and what makes it shiny is that it has metal in it. What else? This is frit also, the spirals that I use here, which to me symbolizes water. That is ground glass that's called frit, and we talked about that before. And this is a vase that's called the roll-up, and Dan is going to demonstrate that later this afternoon on how to do roll-ups. I don't do hot glass, so I won't be able to assist Dan on it, but hopefully somebody will be. And then these are some of the plates that I make. I make round shapes, square shapes, oblong shapes. So my future plans with my fused glass is to learn more about various techniques of glass fusing and casting. Once I got into learning fused glass, not only is it fun, but I also learned there's so much to learn. There's so many different processes to learn with fused glass. So I want to do more of that. I want to learn how to combine my clay sculptures with glass. The exhibit that's here, what's his name? The artist that, Virgil Ortiz, he's got a piece in there that's clay and then glass. So I want to learn how to do more of that. Also to collaborate with other artists, including my granddaughter. I have a granddaughter that's 17 years old, and she's doing pretty good. I've been teaching her how to work with fused glass. Now this is one of the first pieces, and I just made this like last week, but it's my glass sculpture, my clay sculpture using fused glass. And I'm sure there's a different way that I can learn how to combine that, but she's got a little pendant on that's fused glass, and then her little bowls that she's selling. And I entitled that one Contemporary Artist. Now this one is what they refer to as optical illusion. And these are tack fused butterflies that I make. And this is one of my first pieces of glass casting that I've done. So I'd like to do a little bit more in terms of learning about how to cast glass. And my granddaughter, her name's Carol Lujan Baker, these are her works. And she likes to do a lot of tack fusing. And I'll end with this last photo of my studio up in Taos Pueblo. So that's my story.